at the McCour's Peel Arena from 4:30 p.m. You don't want to miss this action.
See, I had my trials when my bills dried my eyes.
Retinoblastoma, a very rare cancer but very common in children.
All my primary life and high school life, I never had any desk mate.
Why do we have so much of it in Kenya, and why are we losing more children to it?
They thought it was a disease that can go around affecting people.
In Kenya, rights to property are guaranteed in law for both men and women.
One of the greatest challenges in championing for women land rights is violence.
Retrogressive social and cultural practices are denying women access to and use of land.
Walikuwa wanasema siwezi pata saba, ambapo bwana yangu walikufa.
How can this be addressed?
Wamama wako na haki ya kumiliki mashamba.
Her Land Rights, a special documentary this Sunday at 6:40 p.m.
Finding the truth in these uncertain times has become certain. Possibilities for business even more convenient with the Nation e-paper. To enjoy this and more, simply dial star 550 star 1 hash for Daily Nation and star 550 star 5 hash for Business Daily on your mobile phone and get 50% discount on the e-paper. Yes, for just 20 shillings each, the truth will find you and more possibilities right where you are. Dial star 550 star 1 hash for Daily Nation and star 550 star 5 hash for Business Daily today. Terms and conditions apply.
She's so insecure, she don't make love with the lights on.
This week on The Trend, the evergreen Sauti Sol are releasing their new album, Midnight Train. They'll be live on The Trend. All the way from Nigeria, Joe Boy. Only on The Trend.
'Cause I'm certain brighter days are yet.
The Kenya Film Commission, in partnership with Techno Mobile, CDI Gadgets, Documentary and Reality TV, has rolled out the 3rd edition of the Mobile Phone Film Competition. It is a competition for short films shot using exclusively mobile phones.
To participate, you need to be a Kenyan citizen, have a smartphone that can shoot video in HD, be between the ages of 18 to 35 years old, shoot a film not longer than 5 minutes. The film should be in English, but if you must use any other language, please use subtitles in your film.
This is NTV.
Hello there, I'm Smriti Vidyathi. Welcome to NTV at 1 on this World Environment Day, June the 5th. And to mark this day, and in a move to protect Mother Earth, the government has declared a ban on single-use plastics in all protected areas. We'll have more on this in our subsequent bulletins, but in this broadcast, we will be coming to you live from the county of Mombasa with our reporter Kevin Mutai, and also from the KICD headquarters with Ngina Kirori. Let's start with Ngina and head to our top story. Now, following the establishment of the National Education Response Committee, the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Professor George Magoha, is receiving the committee's report at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development on the future of education centres amid the coronavirus pandemic. Ngina Kirori is at the centre and she's got more for us. Ngina, what can you tell us at this point?
Well, thank you, Simiti. The National Education Response Committee was actually formed about last month to be able to identify the institutions that have adversely been affected by the closure of schools. Among these include the disruption to the school calendar, which has seen the KCP and the KCSE exams being a contentious issue. And on that topic, the Kenya National Union of Teachers and other institutions have been arguing that the exams should be pushed from November this year, which was when they're supposed to take place, to April next year. And we wait to hear from the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Professor George Magoha, on what the first report, which is going to be submitted today, will hold. And after that, we'll be able to actually fill you in on more of the details. Simiti.
All right, Gina, thanks very much indeed. There are going to be certain complexities when it comes to thinking about ways to open up schools safely amid the coronavirus pandemic. Gina Kirori coming to us live from the KICD here in Nairobi. Now, the Law Society of Kenya has joined the judiciary in opposing a proposal by President Uhuru Kenyatta to place some functions of the Judicial Service Commission under a state department. The LSK president, Nelson Havi, says the executive order by the president was ill-informed and goes against the spirit of the independence of the judiciary as a separate arm of government. Havi says in a statement released to newsrooms that the order is one of the many pronouncements made by the executive in the recent past, pointed to a government keen on muzzling the independence of other institutions. Havi says it is appalling that for the umpteenth time, the President Kenyatta-led administration has not only violated rules and laws calling for a separation of power between the executive and the judiciary, but also failed to uphold pronouncements made by the courts against his administration. Well, this trend, he says, together with the current executive order, must therefore be opposed since it risked curtailing the gains made by the Constitution. President Kenyatta had in the order outlined a reorganization of various state organs as well as other arms of government, including Parliament, something that the Attorney General, Paul Kihara, says falls within the mandate of the head of state. Now, Ford Kenya party leaders allied to Moses Wetangula have urged its members to disregard what they called the illegitimate takeover of the party by the Dr. Simiyu Eseli-led group. The leaders insist that Moses Wetangula remains the legitimate leader of the Lion Party. They have also urged the members of the party to stay calm as the party moves towards stabilization and keeping its house in order. Moses Wetangula was handed a lifeline in the battle for the party's leadership when the Registrar of Political Parties, Anne Nderitu, said the, quote, coup in the party had gaps. Nderitu upheld the leadership of Moses Wetangula as Ford Kenya party leader hours after the party Secretary General, Eseli Simiyu, had notified her of his ouster. Now, 2 former cops accused of killing 2 people in May will take plea in their case next week. Former Sergeant Frederick Leliman and Chief Inspector Stephen Lele failed to take plea when they appeared before the Machakos magistrate yesterday. They will be joined by 6 other officers who are set to be charged after recommendation from the Independent Police Oversight Authority, that's IPOA.
The reason for non-appearance of
Former Sergeant Frederick Leliman made an appearance in court virtually. He has been at the committee remand prison waiting for his trial to begin. Alongside Chief Inspector Stephen Lele, the 2 face charges for murdering Jacob Mbai and Elizabeth Mutuku, residents of Mlolongo, in May 2016. His co-accused Lele sat pensively alone in the dock. The court session taking into consideration the social distancing rules currently being enforced in the fight against COVID-19. The 2 were expected to take plea, but that did not happen. Reason: the mental assessment report for Leliman was not ready. Sergeant Leliman is also on trial for the murders of lawyer Willy Kimani, Josephat Mwenda and Joseph Mwiruri in June 2016. The case will be mentioned on Monday 8th, where Leliman has been ordered to provide a mental assessment test. They are not the only police officers facing the law. Yesterday, IPOA, after including its investigations, has received a green light from the Director of Public Prosecutions to prosecute 6 officers for a number of offences, including murder. Duncan Ndiemandhiwa, alias Champez, will be charged with the murder of 13-year-old Yasin Moyo, who was shot while at the balcony of his parents' home in Kiamaiko. Administration Police Officer Lotu Angorita will also be charged with the murder of secondary school teacher Coletta Amondi, who died in Siaya County after she was shot by a police officer who was responding to a burglary incident at Usigu Market. Festus Kipto Saina, Boniface Wambura Chacha, Joseph Mwaniki and Nashaun Adera, on the other hand, will be facing assault charges for causing harm to Abdi Ibrahim Nur, a businessman in Garissa town who sustained a fracture in his leg during the brutal arrest. The police have faced criticism for violently implementing the coronavirus restrictions. The brutality has not spared even the essential service workers. Kericho Senator Aaron Cheruyot has filed a complaint against the Cheborge police post after Hilary Kirui, a clinical officer at Tenwek Hospital in Kericho, was fatally shot on his way home from work. IPOA is yet to respond to the matter. The Health CS is also shining the spotlight on the officers manning various roadblocks, as a number of truck drivers have made it past several checkpoints without COVID-19 clearance certificates.
Huyu mtu ni kusema amepitia njia ingine ambayo haina roadblock, ama ni kusema alipitaje roadblock na anaenda mpaka Busia. Mimi sitaki kusema ati kuna kitu ama mimi sioni, lakini wewe mwenyewe jiulize. Hata ukiwa wewe sio mwelevu sana, unafikiri alipita namna gani kutoka Mombasa mpaka akafika Busia? Alifikaje huko?
Ruth Sarmoi, NTV.
Now, human rights organizations in Mombasa have launched a State of Human Rights report during the COVID-19 pandemic so far. Now, the report has documented over 250 cases of human rights violations, including 20 killings. The report will be handed over to top regional bosses for further action. Kevin Mutai joins us live now from Mombasa with more. Kevin?
Well, Smriti, to be specific, the report has documented 291 cases of human rights violations, and 35% of these cases were reported in Mombasa. Remember, this touched across all the 6 coastal counties, Kwale following with 52 cases, and then of course also Lamu 35 cases, Kilifi 48 cases, Taita Taveta 12 cases, and finally Tana River reported 4% of the total number of these human rights violations. But of course also they've outlined even extrajudicial killings, and as well as the killings meted to residents by criminal gangs. But quickly, let me just join the Executive Director, Haki Africa, Hussein Khalid, to just bring us up to speed and perhaps tell us the key highlights of these reports and further recommendations to the authorities.
Thank you very much, Kevin. As you've very well put it out, we are here today to launch this report, which basically gives the status of human rights within the Coast Province within the COVID-19 pandemic. And out of the 291 cases, we've reported various sorts of atrocities, from killings to torture to gender-based violence to land and evictions of people from houses. And if you just look at the statistics on killings, you'll find that about 70% of all the killings that we've documented in this report are linked to the police, and possibly extrajudicial killings. And this time round, we've even seen a 6-year-old boy being killed. We've seen a 4-year-old girl being killed. And worst of all, an 8-month-old fetus that was killed while inside the mother's womb. And we are here today to present this to the security authorities of this region. And we are calling on them to ensure that human rights are protected.
What are your recommendations?
One of the key recommendations, for example, we're saying that we've seen the COVID-19 measures have actually negated the enjoyment of human rights in the country. So one of the recommendations we're saying at this point in time, we actually need to review the COVID-19 measures. For example, if you look at the curfew has greatly impacted on the enjoyment of human rights. If you look at the cessation of movement, people can no longer access police stations, people can no longer access places where they can report cases.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Smriti, this report was filed from March to May 31st, and right now we're waiting for top police bosses from the region, including the Regional Commissioner John Elungata, the County Police Commander Rashid Yakub, among other security organs who will be receiving this report. Perhaps we'll also get to hear from them what they have to say, and of course we'll compile a comprehensive story with regards to this particular report in our subsequent bulletins. Back to Smriti.
All right, Kevin, thanks very much. Now, the Nyeri County Governor Mutahi Kahiga has once again drawn the anger of the residents of his county over his branding antics. The governor's latest stunt includes him plastering his face on a billboard announcing the construction of one pit latrine. Melita Oletenges tells us more.
This signboard, towering just outside the gate of this ECDE center in Nyeri, perhaps signals the Kahara Early Education Center's urgent need for relief. The signboard announces the construction of a pit latrine at the center, but the curiosity is less about the absence of proper sanitation facilities at the school, but more about the watchful eyes of the county's great leaders. Such a lofty statement for a quite humble project. The governor is taking a stand to stamp his presence in the upgrade of the school's worn-down toilets. It's a rather tall stand.
Sioni haja ya kuweka vibao kama hizi. Afadhali wafanya kazi ingine na hii pesa, sababu ubao unamaanisha nini sasa? Tutawajua, sisi tuliwachagua na tunawajua. Kuna haja gani ya kuweka vibao kama hizi?
Hii inaweza kula tuseme something to do like 60,000. Lakini pit latrine unakuta inakula 30,000. So it's a waste of money.
It is not the first time Mutahi Kahiga has been criticized for plastering his face all over what he sees as his achievements. In April, he came under fire for quoting his picture on sanitizers donated by the Kibos Sugar Company, and that cost about 100,000 shillings. These portraits everywhere don't really command any reverence anymore. In fact, some see it as portraits of men who demand to be remembered.
Pesa si yao. Wakiingia kwa afisi wasichukue watu kama ni wajinga. Tunaangalia kila kitu, tunaona vile wanafanya, na hata kama tungekuwa na uwezo, tungetumia ile section 6 ya recurring cross. Tuondoe.
Our efforts to reach Governor Mutahi Kahiga for an interview were futile as our calls went unanswered. His deputy, Caroline Karugu, however, spoke to us on phone, saying she had nothing to do with the pompous display.
Well, Melita, I wish to disassociate myself from these persistent, cheap publicity stunts, and I consider them extremely unfortunate and ill-advised. Even the mere contemplation of these acts is a total abuse of the intelligence of the people of Nyeri County. Thank you.
The billboards were later pulled down. Residents now want the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the DCI to investigate the extravagance, which they say amounts to misuse of public funds in the county.
It is once again image above development in Nyeri County, and the monies used to make such signboards might just exceed that of the project. The public relations gimmicks are now becoming a burden the taxpayers have to carry. Melita Oletenges, NTV in Kahara, Nyeri County.
All right, well, Melita, understandably, people are quite fed up. Let's see what action, if any, is taken. Melita actually joins us live now. We've heard some reaction to those developments, Melita, but you also have a different story for us coming out of Nyeri with regard to a funeral and the lack of social distancing. Tell us what's going on.
Yes, indeed, Smriti, as you rightly put it, of course, a lot of reactions coming from the story about Governor Mutahi Kahiga, and of course, people have been condemning the setting up or erection of the signboard, saying that it is just a matter of public interest as opposed to ensuring that people in Nyeri County get access to more development, and they're saying that the county government is spending more money on publicity as opposed to ensuring that the money is channeled to different development projects in the county. But away from that, Smriti, is us a few minutes ago here in Mutwadhi here in Mukurweini constituency, there was a bit of fracas here. Journalists were being actually harassed by a police officer from the Kenya Forest Service. And this is in regards to a story that we are following up on, just showing you how people are observing social distancing here. We are actually following up on a story about a burial ceremony that is happening here, and the CS for Health, Mutahi Kagwe, was actually expected to be at this burial. But Smitty, from the pictures that you can see there, is that the 15 people that are required to attend burial is a guideline that has been flouted here. And of course, social distancing is now an issue. And just to paint a picture of this is that, as you can see there are more than, say, 15 people. You can see that there are many in number, and the government has come against such a gathering in the past, saying that people should actually be just 15 people. And this is to ensure that the guidelines are actually adhered to, the coronavirus COVID-19 guidelines, Smirti. And of course, as I said earlier, Mutahi Kagwe, the CS for Health, was expected at this burial. This just goes to paint a picture of the juxtaposition as why the officials, Ministry of Health officials, are actually selling to the people and what they are observing. So a few minutes ago, Smirti, we were actually made to sit down here, harassed. Journalists from the Nation Media Group and NTV, Nicholas Komo, a writer with The Nation, and also Joseph Kanye, photographer, and Charles Moreithi and I were actually harassed here by a few young men saying that we are not allowed to cover this story. And of course, Mirti, it is actually what we've seen here that has caused us to actually follow up on this story. As you can see, there are a number of cars parked here, and this tells you that actually there are more people here than they are supposed to. And this is actually what the government has been saying people should not be doing. And they, as you've seen here, quite a number of them also are not wearing masks. So the guidelines here have actually been flouted, Smirti. But we've seen a number of health officials attending this function. We've also seen different leaders from the constituency and the county attending this function, Smirti. And it's quite sad to show just how journalists can be harassed in the line of work, trying to do their job. But all in all, Smirti, we will be pitching tent here just to bring you more updates on this story. But for now, over to you in studio, Smirti.
All right, Melita, thanks very much. I did spot a police car, and interesting to see that such a ceremony with that many people is taking place in the presence of police, and as you mentioned, some high-profile people as well. It is incidents such as these that no doubt will inform the government's decision as to which way forward when it comes to reopening the country. We'll, of course, hear from the President tomorrow. All ears and eyes will be on that. All right, let's take a quick breather on NTV at 1. There'll be more coming up in just a moment. Stay with us.
Sonadol Extra imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli kupambana haraka na maumivu ya kichwa, mwili na hata meno. Sonadol Extra, hakika maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
As we battle COVID-19 and adjust to life's new normal, the University of Nairobi encourages you to pursue your career development goals. Applications are ongoing for the June and September 2020 programs for diploma, bachelor's, master's and PhDs in all our campuses with online classes available. Prevent the spread of COVID-19 by following the government health guidelines. The University of Nairobi is a world-class university committed to scholarly excellence.
Rashes again? Kiss Kids diapers. Kiss Kids, no rashes. Kiss Kids, no rashes. Bye-bye rashes. Buy diapers. Choose Kiss Kids.
Welcome back to NTV at 1. Now, police in Malindi have arrested at least 70 revelers at a bar for flouting COVID-19 protocols. The officers stormed Dome Grill Bar and Restaurant last evening and whisked away revelers while also shutting down the facility. Malindi OCPD Joe Lekuta ordered the crackdown after receiving several complaints about bars and restaurants operating with total disregard of the COVID-19 guidelines. Lekuta said that most of the bars are also operating past the stipulated time. Those who were arrested were detained at the Malindi police station and are awaiting to be arraigned. Now, residents in Kiharu constituency in Murang'a County are living in fear after hippos were sighted in their neighborhood. The residents stated that apart from the destruction of their farms by the animals, they also fear being attacked.
Residents of this area say the wild animals have been roaming in their villages, destroying their crops for the last 2 weeks.
Huwa anatokea masaa ya jioni saa 12. Akitokea chakula chake mzuri ni viazi vitamu na mahindi machanga.
They are now pleading with the Kenya Wildlife Services, KWS, to move with speed and contain the animals.
Tumekadiria hasara kubwa sana. Tumejaribu kuongea na watu wa KWS, wanatuuliza kama ni mjamzito ama kama yuko na mtoto. Sasa mpaka tumechoka.
Kwa shamba kutafuta chakula hatuwezi. Tuko na mboga huku chini, hatuwezi kuja kutafuta. Usiku hatuwezi kwenda kwa msalani. Tunatumia kalai.
They are now threatening to take action if the KWS does not act.
Sasa tukiita hawa watu wa KWS hawataki kutusaidia. Sisi tumeamua kama vijana tujitokeze tukabiliane na yeye. Hata nilikuwa nimepewa pilipili because nilikuwa najua tukimuona leo hakuna kitu kingine. Because mimi ajangu ilikuwa tu nibebe kichwa, niende na double cabin, niende niwe natengeneza kasupu pale because hiyo kasupu yake ni mzuri sana.
Na hatuogopi. Sisi sasa hii tumefika mwisho. Sababu hata ukilala tu unasubuliwa, mbwa akibweka unaamushwa. Hii kitu ati imekuja. Sasa hata usigiza tupati.
The heavy rains experienced in the area last month caused the water levels in the rivers to rise, encouraging hippos to travel upstream and stray into villages. KWS warned the residents against attempting to confront the wild animals, saying the matter had not come to their attention, but they will act accordingly to avoid deaths and more distractions. Martin Mora, NTV, Murang'a County.
All right, now Youth and Gender Affairs Chief Administrative Secretary Rachel Shabash now says that the government plans to have residents of the ever-flooding Nyakach area in Kisumu County resettled on higher grounds to protect them from the devastating effects of the floods. Shabash was speaking during a food distribution drive in the area. Hundreds of families have been displaced by the floods and are currently seeking refuge in churches and schools. Shabash was accompanied by the area woman representative Rosa Mbuyu, where victims of floods received rice, maize, flour, mosquito nets and a stipend of 500 shillings per family.
There are so many houses that were actually totally destroyed in this area. And my request to the government, in this economic stimulus effort, is there an opportunity where we can give some of these families a startup kit just so that they are able to begin to build their homes?
I can assure you, if the flooding were to come back again, we would be back in this same cycle. The hard decision government has to make, and we have to make that decision together with the leaderships and even the county governments, is where we know the disaster will strike. We must move people, and we would like to move them permanently.
Now, a Mexican family who got stuck in Senetwa village in West Pokot County due to COVID-19 has decided to partner with the Pastoral Communities Empowerment Program, PASEP, in sensitizing the community on how to prevent themselves from COVID-19. The family of Mauricio Villar arrived in the country early this year and were forced to stay longer due to the travel disruptions caused by the coronavirus. Well, in return, they joined PASEP, a community program that supports women and children in donating food and creating awareness on how they can protect themselves from contracting the virus. In their door-to-door campaigns, they issue handouts that consist of drawings and messages.
We are giving out this information. It's very important because it's written in Pokot and in English.
but it also has the drawings according to the culture, because we want to emphasize that strengthening the culture, the Pokot culture, will also keep safe the communities.
We are targeting 500 families to give masks in order for us to keep away the COVID virus, which has become a problem in the world, and we wouldn't want to have it come to our community, and for that reason, we are preventing it. We are protecting ourselves to make sure that we are preventing it by washing our hands using the detergent, by teaching the people we have done the education to make sure that they keep themselves away.
Elsewhere, a 221 million shilling tender has been awarded for a mega facelift at the Kitale airstrip, which is aimed at boosting the regional economy. The airstrip will increase local revenue and will provide the much-needed employment to area residents. Speaking while officially launching the project, Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa, who was accompanied by the Council of Governors Chairman, that's Wycliffe Oparanya, said that the facelift will take 18 months. The county government has been instructed to repossess all grabbed land around the airstrip to allow completion of the second phase of the facelift. Initially, people from the region depended on the airstrip in Eldoret, which is far off.
Sababu ndege haziwezi fika hapa kwetu, zinafika Eldoret na zinarudi Nairobi. Leo phase 1 ya hiyo contract imeanza. Na kwa niaba ya ndugu yangu CS Masharia, waziri wa barabara, leo nime-hand over zile contract documents kwa contractor ambaye siku ya kesho anaanza kujenga uwanja wetu wa ndege.
Now, there are at least a whopping 9.9 million coconut trees in the coast region, according to a 2010 coconut survey. Kilifi and Kwale counties recorded over 2 million trees respectively. But despite the huge numbers, the country could be losing over 50 billion shillings annually due to the lack of full exploitation of the coconut sub-sector. Judith Cherono with more.
Numerous byproducts can be obtained from the coconut tree, according to independent agriculture consultant Bahanguma. There are benefits right from the root system, the trunk to the nut itself. He says it's upon the county and national governments to enlighten farmers about these benefits.
The farmers, if they are not organized, they cannot be able to advocate for any policy change because they are a weaker institution in themselves. So I will urge really the county governments, of course, with a push from the national governments, that smallholder farmers must be organized for them to be able to enjoy the benefits of getting inputs much more faster.
All right, let's go live to the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development now, where the Cabinet Secretary George Magoha is speaking. He was receiving the committee's report regarding the reopening of education centres. Let's listen in.
A report which has credible proposals on the way forward in seeking resumption of learning whenever it is considered appropriate as guided by the Ministry of Health and other arms of the national government. We wish to note that the Ministry will take seriously the recommendations of this committee and use them to set up further dialogue with all other stakeholders within and without government to ensure appropriate and decisive measures are put in place to facilitate the resumption of learning. The government, in consultation with development partners, is putting in place mitigation measures in all schools to prevent COVID-19 from penetration to our learning institutions. We assure the public that the government will provide further direction this weekend regarding the extended closure of schools, given that some of the main COVID-19 restrictions are still set to expire, and I dare say that it will look like an open secret, because as we speak, 351 public schools are being used by the government as quarantine centers, and some of the universities are being used as isolation centers. Further, the ministry will review the report before advising the country on steps to be taken regarding the most important issue of the academic calendar and the level of preparedness that will be required of all stakeholders involved in running ECD centers, primary and secondary schools, teacher training institutions, TVET institutions, and our universities. It should therefore be instructive that all decisions will be made based on data and evidence provided by the Ministry of Health. I can't see the doctor. Why are you standing 10,000 miles away? Let them see you so that they know you are a senior member. On a sad note, ladies and gentlemen, this ministry has noted that some parents, guardians, and caregivers are not providing sufficient care of their children while at home. For instance, it is most heartbreaking that after I personally having gone to the slums to fish out some of the girls, the poor girls, and having taken them to schools, and then looking for scholarships for them, some of the scholarships are for 4 years. 3 of these Form 1 girls are already pregnant during this short period of 2 months. And shame, a very big shame on the parents. I would like to talk to them eyeball to eyeball that I think we should only produce those children that we are able to take care of. If you have no time to look after your child, then perhaps you have no business creating a child. And this is going forward because this pandemic is here for a while. I want to state without any fear of contradiction that our parents must change their mindsets and love their children, provide time. And the love is measured by the number of minutes or hours that you spend with your child. It is not measured by the amount of money you give to your child. When you spend time with your child, you are spending part of your life with your child. And that is what is lacking. And I hope that my many other daughters who are at risk, especially in the slums and even in the normal homes where people have a carefree attitude, can the parents just take time to mother and father them. Additionally, ladies and gentlemen, you may have noted that the Director of Criminal Investigation has sent out a cautionary statement warning of internet child abusers who have started luring children into all manner of cyberspace offenses after invading their digital learning classes. The Ministry wishes to urge parents and guardians and caregivers to firmly take charge of the custody of their children at home and protect them from sexual and drug abuse, teenage pregnancies, female genital mutilation, and what have you. It is necessary to guarantee the safety and health of children. I want to dare say that from the television you found a 13-year-old student leading a battalion of warriors in one part of this country when people are fighting with bows and arrows. And I keep asking myself, where did the parents of that child go? You don't have to have gone to school to be intelligent. Everybody is intelligent. Everybody is intelligent. This notion that children only come to school to learn is one of the most stupid notions, because learning starts at home and it starts with the family. So can we all go back to our families, please, and start teaching our children? The journey of life, the university of life, is not gotten inside the classroom. A bigger part of it starts from the family, at home. Through the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, the ministry has extended lessons to provide through the broadcast online and digital learning until such time that schools are open. Let me hasten to disabuse your mind from giving me a battery of questions that, my dear brothers and sisters, you have seen that this pandemic is still spiking. You have also seen all over the world that nobody has opened any school when the pandemic is still spiking. But you have also seen in places like South Korea or Israel, where everything was done correctly and people rushed to open and they have closed. So it will be of no consequence if you ask me, are we opening yesterday? I think that pronouncement will be made by somebody else at an appropriate time. This will be made free to you, but not today, because it has an owner. The owner must be briefed, and then we shall make it public. I think that is a fair way to go. So if you want to ask me questions, wait until Monday or Tuesday, when I will now answer you with a full throttle. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate the fact that you have been here since morning. But you know, when the clergy comes before you, you don't argue. Does any of you argue with them? You don't argue. So that's why this has taken a bit longer. I know I called you for 11, but the clergy took that motion. Thank you very much. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much.
All right, the Cabinet Secretary for Education there, George Magoha, speaking to the press. He did not answer any questions, and he did say that he could not answer the question as to when schools may reopen. That he may address after the presidential address takes place tomorrow. He did, however, say that the numbers are still spiking here in Kenya and across the world. No country opened schools when the numbers were still climbing, and he also made a point to mention that 351 public schools are currently being used by the government as quarantine centres, and some universities are being used as isolation centres. More on that in our subsequent bulletins. For now, let us turn our attention to some international news. And hundreds of mourners joined an emotional memorial service in Minneapolis yesterday for George Floyd, the black man killed by police last week. A civil rights leader vowed that mass protests would continue until, quote, we change the whole system of justice in the United States.
In the U.S. Capitol, Washington, D.C., protesters kneeled in silence at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, the time that a white Minneapolis police officer kneeled on George Floyd's neck, a scene captured on video. Floyd's death has reignited long-felt anger over police killings of African Americans and unleashed a nationwide wave of civil unrest unlike any seen in the U.S. since King's 1968 assassination. In Minneapolis, hundreds of people gathered outside the chapel where George Floyd's memorial service was held to pay their respects, listening to the speeches broadcast on speakers and observing a moment of silence.
Please be seated, except the family.
Inside the venue, family and friends mourned, paying their respects to George Floyd. Floyd's attorney told mourners he would find justice for the 46-year-old.
It was not the coronavirus pandemic that killed George Floyd. I want to make it clear on the record, it was that other pandemic that we're far too familiar with in America, that pandemic of racism and discrimination that killed George Floyd.
I come to tell you, America, This is the time of dealing with accountability in the criminal justice system.
Today is a day of mourning, and the day is coming soon, I am confident, when justice will be served. George Floyd's death was not the first of its kind, and it exposes concerns that reach far beyond this particular case.
In New York, healthcare workers held as heroes for fighting the coronavirus outbreak also took a moment out to denounce racial segregation in the public health system. Wearing masks and hospital scrubs, they held signs and took a knee during a moment of silence.
All right, from that, let's shift our focus to the sports news now. Brian is here with us.
Thank you so much, Smriti. And we start off with athletics news, where Athletics Kenya could make changes to its marathon teams to the Tokyo Olympic Games basing on form. The Federation's senior deputy president in charge of competitions, Paul Mutui, disclosed that a lot could happen between now and the Olympic Games in 2021 after the action was deferred by 1 year owing to the coronavirus pandemic. Mutui spoke to Nation Sports in reaction to the new Olympic qualification guidelines issued by World Athletics for 2021. World Marathon record holders Eliud Kipchoge and Bridget Kosgei were on January picked to lead Team Kenya. That also has World Championships Marathon bronze medalist Amos Kipruto, Boston and Chicago Marathon champion Lawrence Cherono, with Bedan Karoki and Titus Ekuru as reserves. The women's team has 2018 London Marathon champion Vivian Cheriot, World champion Ruth Chepngetich, with Valerie Ayabei and Sally Chepiego the reserves. And Tokyo is likely to scrap events, marking a year to go until the postponed 2020 Olympic Games, fearing a celebration will be inappropriate during the coronavirus pandemic. The Games have been postponed until July 23rd, 2021 over the pandemic, and it remains unclear whether even that delay will be sufficient. Last year, the city and organizers held a series of events to mark the one-year countdown, including unveiling the newly designed medals. But given the global crisis, a similar celebration is unlikely this July. A nationwide state of emergency over the virus has been lifted in Japan, but a recent rise in cases in Tokyo has led to fears of a second wave. IOC President Thomas Bach said last month that 2021 was the last option for holding the Tokyo Games, stressing that postponement cannot go on forever.
That takes place in a very symbolic moment.
Marathon record holder Eliud Kipchoge has welcomed the challenge by English Premier League side Tottenham Hotspur's fans ahead of the virtual 42 kilometers run due on Saturday and Sunday. The race, dubbed Marathon and is free to enter, is a virtual team relay where runners can register either in teams of 4 or as an individual and be placed in another group of 3. During the relay, each runner will run 10.5 kilometers sometime between Saturday and Sunday at a location that suits them to make up a collective marathon distance. Logged on a running app, your team's cumulative time will be placed on a virtual leaderboard to show how you compare with some of the world's best. 10 teams
help women find independence by training them in fish farming. It's tough on my back, joints, and can cause headaches. Panadol Extra relieves multiple types of pain. If symptoms persist, seek medical advice. The Kenya Film Commission, in line with its mandate and function of promoting development of local content and establishing a film fund, has established a film empowerment program that will provide film and video-related funding. Individuals, companies, and organizations will be required to submit funding applications to the Commission. To register, visit www.kenyafilmcommission.com. I help women find independence by training them in fish farming. It's tough on my back, joints, and can cause headaches. Panadol Extra relieves multiple types of pain. Panadol Extra, now with new Optizorb technology, to fight multiple tough pains, with 3 times more pain-relieving medicine in the first 30 minutes when you need it most. Seeing them support themselves makes any pain worth it. If symptoms persist, seek medical advice.
This Sunday on Crossover 101.
Talking every time we are talking, every time we are rapping, brother, sister, come and pop in.
We dropping it like it's hot. Hip hop just got real. And Jesus is king.
The only thing that
it's Hip Hop Sunday, only on your number 1 gospel show.
You are a weakling. Crying doesn't make a person weak, Yvonne. Well, to me it does. Because I believe that only weak people cry. Why make me go through all that trouble?
Because I want you to give up on your own. I want you to realize how weak you are. If you're only going to die at the hands of Del Mundo, saving you would have been all for nothing.
Look, if I was able to face death alone, I'm sure I can also face that demon. All alone.
She's so insecure, she don't make love with the lights on.
This week on The Trend, the evergreen Sauti Sol are releasing their new album, Midnight Train. They'll be live on The Trend. All the way from Nigeria, Joe Boy. Only on The Trend.
'Cause I'm certain brighter days are yet.
NTV, turning on your world. The following program has been rated PG. It may contain scenes unsuitable for children under the age of 10.
You and I both know that that baby isn't really Richard's.